Everyone, my name is Narendra Singh. I'm the Deputy Director of the Building Department here at Miami Beach. I have with me Mr. Mohsen Jarapur. He's in charge of the 40-year recertification process, which we call it now the existing building recertification process. Many of you have been involved in this, know it as a 40-year because that's how originally it was intended to be. But as we know, in the last couple of years, we had many changes coming up. So, and also to my right, we have a structural engineer, Mr. Adalberto Viciero. He does the reviews for the structural portion of the report submitted for the recertification. And then our chief electrical engineer, I'm here, with the electrical report for the recertification. And I'd like to go over the presentation we have today. This presentation is for the existing building certification. And I thank everyone for being here, attending this presentation today. Recently, as I said, there are new changes that came in, and there are state requirements, also Miami-Dade County requirements that with the ordinance, and it will impact many buildings to be recertified due in December 31, 2024. So that's by the end of next year, we're going to have many buildings coming up due for the recertification. The purpose of this meeting is to inform everyone and update on the requirements of the building certification, what is required, and how to contact the building department. Miami-Dade County Chapter 8F requires that the new buildings within the coastline, 3 miles within the coastline, which is basically the entire city of Miami Beach, if it's 3 stories or taller, it needs to be certified 25 years. And after 25 years, it will be on 10-year cycle. Any other buildings, they are on a 30-year cycle. And then after the first 30 years, they will be every 10 years, they will be required to have a recertified. There are some exceptions to the requirements for the recertification. Those will be single-family houses, duplexes, and very small minor buildings defined as having less than 10 occupant load and a gross area of less than 2,000 square feet. The new program also requires the early notification. So we will be sending early notification. The early notifications are 2 years prior to the certification due, and then again 1 year before the certification, and then 90 days before the certification due. We actually create the case, the activity number for the building, and we send it to the people responsible for getting the certification. Like I say, we have a catch-up year coming up next year, since many of the buildings that weren't due before, since they were before the 40 years, now 25 and 30-year catch-up is coming up. That's due by the ordinance of Miami-Dade County by the end of next year. So by December 31st, 2024, we need to catch up on all those certifications, which will be the buildings that are on cycle from 30 to 39-year-old, and the condominiums and cooperatives that are 3 stories or taller, those will be on 25 to 39 years. And everything from there on will be every 10 years from there on. We require that the owner or the manager, whoever is responsible for getting the building certified, hire the competent design professional, and they should always go to Miami-Dade County, not Miami-Dade County, sorry, the state, myfloridalicense.com website, and make sure their license is up to date and they have the proper credentials before hiring them. After we send the 90-day notification, the owner is required to hire a design professional who will submit a report that the building, the conditions of a building, and also certifying the building is structurally and electrical safe for its intended use and continued occupancy. If the design professional finds any deficiencies that are required before he or she feels that they can certify the building, and it will require permits, We still need to get a report, but we need to have a letter saying the building is safe to remain occupied in order for it to continue being occupied. When the design professional report is submitted, not submitted in 60 days, like I said, after the 90 days, if 60 days gone by and we still haven't received it, we will send one final notice, 30 days, which will be posted on site as a reminder, and that will be the final notice. So remember, we had a 2-year prior notice, 1-year notice, 90-day, and this is a 30-day final notice. So please, take it seriously at that time. Timeline for completion as required by Chapter 8F, 811F of Miami-Dade County. You can submit the report 2 years before due. So if the building is due in, let's say, in 2027, you can submit 2 years before in 2025. And we also need to have reports after 90 days when it's actually due with the notice in order to consider the timing. If the repairs are required, owner shall have 150 days to obtain necessary permits for repairs. When repairs or modifications are required, the engineer or architect shall submit a letter saying the building is safe to remain occupied for its continued use, and the letter is valid for no more than 180 days. So if they have a permit and the repairs are going on, we require an updated letter every 180 days. And once the repairs are completed and the permits are final, the design professional, the engineer or architect you hire will need to issue another report and a letter certifying the building is now ready to get certified. State is structurally and electrical safe and recommend the certification of a building. If you need to know about the forms, where to get the forms for the building certification, you can go to our website, which is miamibeachfl.gov/city-hall-building. It's on the presentation board. When you contact the building, it is very helpful to us if you provide us the building address that you are asking about, the building name. Like some buildings will have a name like a yacht club or deco plage or whatever the building is easily identifiable address, and the recertification case number, applicable permits if there are permits for the repairs. So that gives us quickly we can turn around and get you the answers to your question. Also, please do provide your first and last name, email and phone number, the relationship to building title, like you are the building manager, you are the engineer, architect or contractor. What's your relation to the building? It's very helpful to us. Given the advance notice, extensions are not needed, but if you feel like for whatever reason that you do need a extension, only a design professional can request an extension, and it can be no more than 60 days. And we need to have a letter from the design professional at that time saying that building can be structurally and electrical safe for its continued use. And also the extension fees comes with a fee, which is about 1/3 of 180 days, which will be $316.67 approximately. When the reports are provided, design professional report in 90 days, we need to know any deficiencies found. It should be clearly noted. And also if there are permits required, if the building can remain occupied, and estimated timeline of a completion. The design professional to hire architect or engineer is like how long complete the repairs, and that is very helpful. How to submit reports? You can mail in the reports to the building department. Those has to be obviously signed and sealed, physically signed and sealed. It can be mailed to Miami Beach Building Department, 1700 Convention Center Drive, 2nd floor, Miami Beach, Florida, 33139. the reports can be submitted with our team here. You can come in here and submit the signed and sealed reports, or the digitally reports can be uploaded to CSS portal. We have this CSS portal built it into our website. There's a link there for CSS. If you go to miamibeachflorida.com/building, you can look for the link for CSS. Also, there's a way to create a login for the CSS. The instructions are online. If you still have questions on it, you can send an email to building recertification at miamibeachfl.gov. They can help you with any questions you have, uploading the reports or submitting. There are only two formats of submitting the reports: hard copies or electronic digital PDFs, which gotta be verifiable. We have a system to check that signatures are valid. So make sure that you pre-check it before you submit it. The signatures are shown as valid if they are legally signed. Also, with the new requirement, there is a duty to report on part of the design professional who does inspections, that if they find any incidents when they do inspections that are could be dangerous or cause any kind of property damage or personal damage to the property they feel, those needs to be reported in 10 days to the building official. But if the conditions are such that they feel that those are in imminent danger of collapse or have electrical issues that could cause a fire or any other hazard that could pose immediate danger, those needs to be reported to building official in 24 hours. I think it's structural. That's right. Yes.
Okay, these are the structural requirements updates. This is based on that the previous format of the report was very short and very brief, and now the new format considers the engineer had to provide description and conditions of more areas of the structure. The first is a foundation inspection, which is tough because the foundation is concealed, it's not visible. This is more like when the building, there's obvious damage due to settlement. Otherwise, the engineers don't do much. The building it's an old building, already has a few years in place. There's no signs of any settlement, so there's nothing done about this. Then there's also indicating signs of overloading. That's obvious that if you see a reflection, large reflection, you have to report it. That you have to investigate the cause. If it's overloading or it's a damaged member that's giving up. There's the new format is more extensive, and now you have to go to the top of the building and investigate parapet walls, hanging mensers, and any unusual features in buildings. We don't have that many here in Miami Beach that I'm aware of. But the report talks about chimneys, and then seawalls are part of the seawalls are coming here. They're part of the report too. So the engineer has to investigate the condition of the seawall and just qualify if it's in fair condition and doesn't need any repairs. And the report now requires photos. Previous report, they only provide like elevation photos. Now they have to provide photographs of typical conditions: a door, a railing, the roof, top units. The previous report only required inspection of windows. For some reason, now the new report has to include doors and structural glazing in threshold buildings. This is glazing that these are windows that in which the glass is glued to the frame. Now, the only connection is glue adhesive. So this in threshold buildings they need I've included in the report the facade inspection of threshold buildings. And this is basically, the report has been expanded and covers now many other areas. It's more specific. So the engineer has to address all these items in the report. Like before, they were not there. So I think they always have, this always needed to be addressed, but they were not in part of the form. Now I included the form.
That is specified in the form.
Yes.
Okay.
Electrical, I mean,
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jaime Reyes. I'm the chief electrical. The new report for the electrical has been also updated with a few additional fields. Now we are requiring the size of the service of the building, the amperage, if there is breaker fuses, stuff like this. Other items remain basically the same. A new item added to these new requirements are the thermography report, inspection report. That is now required for electrical system operating at 400 amps and higher. The inspection, this inspection performed using an instrument operated by a certified technician and must be level 2 or higher, which identify anomalies from the electrical systems. Those potentially discovering issues in the electrical system that are normal, that the normal eye could not detect. Photo documentation is now part of the requirement for the 40-year reports. Just make sure the engineer submitting the report just needs to make sure that the picture provided do not reflect any violation of code. Otherwise, it would be a little bit complicated approving that report based on the picture provided. So that's something that the engineer needs to be aware of. The thermographic report also needs to make a conclusive statement whether or not thermal anomalies were discovered during the inspection. That's a requirement. Otherwise, it will be just a set of data. Okay, that's it for that.
Next, qualifications for professionals. And this is for what we call threshold buildings. And basically all buildings that are 4 stories or higher, or more than 3 stories. And in this case, the report has to be prepared by a structural professional engineer that has a specialization in structural design. It cannot be any architect or any engineer. So for these buildings, the engineer that is submitting the report has to provide proof that he passed he obtained his license under passing the structural exam, one of the structural exams, or in case that engineers that were practicing before the structural exam was in place, because the structural exam I think became in place in the 90s. That engineer will have to apply. There's a recognition program by the board of professional engineers. There's a recognition program that they can apply and obtain the recognition as a structural engineer. So we basically are requiring that they submit the printout from the DBPR that they have the structural qualifications. Electrical doesn't have.
Well, yeah, the DBPR shows the specialty in which you have your license. So
check that every
Yeah.
time submitted.
Every time.
Building is 3-story.
every time there is a threshold building submitted, we check at the website, the DBPR website, that the engineer
The engineer should
shows
submit their qualifications.
submit the report is.
What happened with the buildings that are lower or 3 stories?
It can be done by any professional engineer.
But it had to be done.
Or an architect.
But it had to be done anyway.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, these are qualifications for threshold buildings.
Okay.
That up to now, They can,
The only
They will
exception
go by
from the certification program are like single family houses, duplexes, very small buildings with a gross area of 2,000 square feet and less than 10 occupant floors. Those are the only exception. Everything else, even if it's a one story, something, a business, or insurance office, or lawyer's office,
Okay.
it needs to have a certification. But there are additional requirements for certain buildings.
Okay.
But regarding the electrical, it doesn't matter the size of the building, the infrared has to be done by a certified level 2
Yes.
right?
That's if it's a 400 amps on.
Yes.
For services, 400 amp.
Yeah,
Okay,
and there is something, sorry,
you mentioned the exceptions are duplex. So if a building is one story, but it's got like 3, 4 units connected to each other, is
That's a condo.
that right?
That could be a condominium or a commercial building. I don't know what you
Well,
describe.
no, it's like a residential, but it's like a townhouse. They have these communities, like gated communities, and these buildings have 4 units. They all look the same. They got like 4 units.
They will need to be certified, but if you have a question about a specific property, you can email to.
No,
Mr.
I don't,
Jarrett.
I'm saying general. So
Generally,
those have to be inspected too?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so those you call threshold. What do you call the other ones, which is not threshold? Below
those
threshold?
are commercial buildings.
No, not residential, let's say, what do you call those? That's 4 units, let's say.
Those are multi-family.
And the name of the inspection for that, you have a special name for that? It's not called threshold, what's it called?
It's called a building recertification.
We're just a
Everything
building
is a building
certification. Another question I had is, on that one,
Yes,
you need to have a structural engineering license, so architect cannot do that.
No, not those.
Okay, the other question back to the gentleman with the electrical. From your experience, since you have the electrical inspection and thermographic, from your experience, is it better to have the electrical person do the inspection first and get the results as much as they can and then do thermographic? Or do the thermographic and find out what's.
That's up to the design professional who's gonna certify.
Yeah, but I mean, from your experience, is it better to have the thermographic first? And so that way you know what's going on, that way you can do a better, you have a better insight.
I think that, as Narinda says, that's something.
We don't have a preference one way.
Exactly, we need both inspection done, so
Yeah,
for us, doesn't matter.
yeah, I know you don't have a preference, but what I would say is that.
Usually I would think that the design professional is the first person to hire and then he goes and says, okay, I need additional testing or something. Your engineer may even ask for additional requirements, which are not even part of the report in order to certify for him or her to certify the building. He may say, I need some kind of concrete testing or something else to be done, which is not required. But it may be, they feel comfortable only after having certain additional testing done. That will be up to them. Who's gonna sign and seal those reports saying the building is safe.
In the few slides previous, you mentioned that say after 2 year, 1 year, and 90 days, 60 days, finally, okay, they make the last moment they come there and there.
Yes,
And then after that, they have 150 days,
it's total 150.
150 days. But
If
suppose,
the building need a repair,
but suppose they started 2 years in advance,
Right.
do they still have only 150 or they have the whole 2 years?
They wanna have those 150 after the notification. So the
After
previous time doesn't matter. You could start, if you think that your building needs a 3 years worth of repair, you could start in 3 years of more permits and repairing whenever you notice a building, even if it's due for certification or no. And if it needs a repair, anytime you need to get
So
permits
150 days starts when?
after the notification, 90-day notification.
After the 90 days.
Yes.
Mr. Reyes, when you says, 40 amps, electrical service, 400, is everything connected downstream that service, right? Because there is a misconception out there between property managers and some professionals. No, it's only the 400 amps panel. So it's based on the board guidelines, it's borders, disconnect, panels, even time clocks. I don't recall, but there is a city asking for the grounding connection too. So
Yeah, for verification.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating. My name is Mohsen Jarapur. The question after acquiring a repair permit, what's going to happen? So basically, when they need a permit to do a correction, they have 180 days. And also we require from architects or engineer who will provide the certification report, provide affidavit, and basically say the building is safe to be occupied while the repair is done. Next, please. Currently, our building certification fee is $950 per building. Next, please. What's going to happen in failure to comply with recertification? The recertification case can be escalated to magistrate, also previously known as special master, and judge may impose daily fees, or recertification may be escalated to Miami-Dade County Unsafe Structure Board. The board may rule to fix or demolish the structure. Please note, our goal is each building to be safe and occupied safely. So at the end of the day, that's our goal, and we want to work with the owners and also engineer that happen. Next, please. If you have any question related to the condo, you can contact the office of the condo ombudsman, and there is 2 offices, Tallahassee, which is phone number and also email or fax noted there, and at Fort Lauderdale the same. Next, please. And also, if you have a question regarding condominium special assessment application, you might contact Miami-Dade County Public Housing and Community Development. That is noted there, and also phone number. Next, please. Some question, basically, this we have been asked, what's format for the recertification report? Basically, the certification report needs to be followed by Miami-Dade County Board of Rules and Appeal standards and procedure, which is structural, electrical, needs to be done and it is submitted, and also the safety letter needs to be incorporated with the report. Who can I speak to regarding the recertification review? So you can email us a building recertification at MNBFL. One of our staff will reply to the emails. Is there ever any consideration to waive the fee for the new owner of property? Unfortunately, fee cannot be waived. These are basically the fee being set by City of Miami Beach Commission. Thanks. Other payment methods for the certification. So we do not accept the check, but it can be processed through the link is noted there. E-check also can be processed. How can I obtain a copy of the certification report? Can I obtain a copy of the certification letter? Yes, you can. Basically, this is part of our record section that you need to reach out to them, and we need to send an email to building records at MHFL. The staff, they will provide a copy of the certification report if we have it. How do I find if my building has provided a report? So through our CSS system, which is citizen self-service, they can look up any report was uploaded, and they can view any type of report and also review of our staff reviews. Next, please. My building is vacant. Do I need to act? Also, yes, you do need to act. Basically, you need to provide a report and also a letter from professional engineer or architects, basically to say the building is safe and secure, and basically there is no immediate danger to any other building. You recommend any engineer or architect to conduct inspection? Unfortunately, we cannot recommend anybody, but we always say make sure, like anything else, get a reference and interview the professional engineer or architect they want to do, make sure they've done it before. How long does it take for the certification report to be reviewed? Normally it takes about 1 week, but sometimes it may take longer.
Okay, and also I want to add a couple of things. that currently the fees are $950 for a certification. But our building official is working on finding ways to see if we can get some kind of discounts. Those not official yet, but we are looking in ways to see if there can be some discounts on that certification.
At the end of that 1 week review, you issue a certificate of something like occupancy or something.
If the building can be certified, if the fees are paid already, and both structural and electrical approved, and depending on a building, they may even send sometime an inspector to just generally walk through the building. And if all those conditions are met, yes, the building will be certified and you will receive a letter of certification.
Just time by building official.
We can download it, it can be downloaded.
Jackie, can that be downloaded?
It's sent via email. We send you the approval letter via email. The contact, so make sure that you create.
You are on the
order,
contact.
see if it's account with an email, so we can, normally we email it to the engineer or.
That was my question also, that because before sometimes you don't have an inspection. Now you're having an inspection of the building to check on the report, like.
Depends, they have some criteria that when they want to send, it's not considered an inspection. It's right, it's like a site visit just to.
I think it's a good idea.
Right.
It's not an inspection.
It's not a-
Yeah.
Our inspector goes there to see if there's anything evident.
I think it's a good idea.
Where we
Yeah,
can,
just
Yeah.
a follow
we check when we check the items on the report, make sure that they are matching the.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to add that in addition to looking for discounts, our director is also working on a ways to see if we can expedite permits for the recertification. So if there are structural repairs required because of the building recertification or electrical repairs required, how we can streamline that, expedite it for you so that you can get your building certified quickly. So we are working on that. So we are coming up with the new processes. I don't know if you know, met our building official, Anna. She's always looking for ways to streamline, so.
I think it's important that since you mentioned that, let's say that the engineer goes and finds something wrong. And of course, they had to be repaired
Find
and
ways to have a special permit, just go.
correct, like having the permit fast,
Fast,
correct the
right,
problem
fast,
fast, so we don't have a problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
You said that there's a website where we can check the status of any building process happening. Is there a list that's, will state when the buildings are due? Like, can you look, is there a place I can go and say, all right, this building is this address, their certification is going to be due by 2030?
Yeah, well, basically, based on the current code, it's, if the building is 25 years, condominium, it's due after 25 years when the building was closed. And the same thing for the other buildings. Now, we also have a 10 years. Basically, the building was built, let's say 1982, so it will be due in 2000. So we can go based on years of the building. Those are the things. And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, I believe you can get all of Miami County property recertification list from Miami County. They can provide you those.
But like I said, next year is a catch-up year because it's no longer just 40 years, it's 30 and 25. So chunk of building that fall within those years, like, so between 25 and 40 or 30 and 40, those gonna be coming up for certification for next year.
So any building over 25 years old right now has to be recertified.
Condominium cooperative streets.
So we would have already received a notice? You're saying we get it 2 years in advance?
Yeah, we did one post last year for 2 years, and we did one post for 1 year and 2 years.
And currently, there are inspectors going around posting the ones that are due now. So we are posting those on the site.
So when you say 25 years for condominium, you mean
Or cooperatives, 3 stories or taller.
threshold?
Yeah.
Threshold.
No.
Not
Three story.
3 stories.
It's a different.
This is
3 stories.
The structural engineer is a different criteria.
From the state law.
Oh, okay.
So even a 3-story also is a 25 years.
Okay, it doesn't matter, like 3-story or more.
A 3-story is not a threshold, but it's in the 25, sorry,
Yes.
25 years.
The threshold applies only to structural portion, right? Electrically is the same as the other.
Electrically, those ones who need to have electrical engineer, it cannot be just.
There's also threshold concern with electrical too.
Threshold applies to both. electrical.
Above the threshold, just have to have special requirements for the inspectors of both electrical and structural. That's the main difference between the two different, between threshold and non-threshold. That's it.
I have a question regarding, there's one section there, the form, it says that when you go to the site, aside from looking for the problem, structural whatever, also check to see if there's any illegal addition modifications to the building. Now, for that, one would need record drawings to go there to check to see if there's been added and subtracted from that. What is that? Can you speak about that process? How would we do it? We should get a drawing ahead of time about the building from the record department, see that somebody did the illegal addition.
Well, based on my experience, normally what they, architects or engineer, whoever wants to do reports, they actually get a part of records from us, records, and when the building was built, even the drawings. I seen that. Not everybody does it, but I said, I think it's a good practice, good idea and practice that the engineer architects try to obtain all the records and to know what happened to buildings. So it has some type of information when they go to inspection to make sure those are
The reference. Okay, thank you.
Also, in the property appraiser website, Miami-Dade County, they should list the additions.
Yeah, if it was illegal, what I'm saying.
Or illegal, that's a.
So in that case, you should have a record drawing to see what's been added in the subtitles.
But that's like structural, right? But what happens if I go to the building and I see, let's say, 4 more panels? I identify those panels in the drawings, and they have 4 more panels. And then I go to the records of the city. I don't see any permit for any electrical permit. Should I consider those panels illegal?
Oh, wow.
That's tricky.
If you couldn't find it in the records.
All right.
There is no permit,
Not a permit.
All right.
should be,
They need to legalize.
But the engineer, electrical engineer is also responsible to check that if was done illegal or he just has to check that it's safe.
well, the main reason for the electrical report is safety.
Safe, right?
It's safety. However,
If they notice if they have reason to believe it, then.
Okay.
Yeah.
they may be
Like a duty report, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the form says, in the form itself, you're gonna check for those two.
Yeah, something typical when you go to a condo, you see a lot of instant water heaters.
Yeah.
In the units. And then after permit, you are even more the meter stack, so
On the panel.
even you go back or you have to legalize that.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, they,
to the water heater or?
at the first page of the presentation, it says clearly that if the engineer sees something that could be causing a life safety issue for them,
Have to report.
it's not important. So,
Do you have anything to say or recommend regarding FPE, Cinsco, Federal Pacific panels?
we don't force, we cannot force,
Okay.
to replace those panels. However, there are reports out there saying that
Yeah.
there are a lot of fire.
Let's say the panel looks good right now. I did my infrared, it's okay, I don't see anything crazy. But 2 years later, there is a fire in that panel. And I, as an engineer, I didn't recommend to replace that panel. That's so my
To win the,
side, I am.
as an engineer doing that report, you can, it will be your duty to recommend based on what it sees out there. To replace it.
Yeah, but I can recommend. They say, no, I don't want to replace the panel, then I can say, well, I'm not going to recertify the building. So
That's
professional opinion.
Exactly.
So any design professional, whether it's structural or electrical.
Yeah, well, really-
whatever repair they feel that they need to make to the building to upgrade it or whatever. That's up to them to ask for those. Those are going above and beyond what are the requirements from the guidelines from the board.
Yeah, that's it's a lot of time. So basically, yes, I'm forcing them to replace the panel. If they want me,
You
to
cannot make
recertify the building. Yeah. No, I don't pass any of those panels. They can be in perfect condition.
I had a customer one time, and the period was coming up. They were asking me to come there, do the inspection, and then let them know so they can do all the repairs, and then we write the report. That cannot be done, right? I mean, when we do the inspection, we write the report according to our inspection. Not that wait for them to go ahead and do repairs, even if to do it legally, they get a license contract and all of those. But our report is as of the time that we saw it.
That's correct.
That's correct.
It needs to be submitted.
And we submit it. And then the city will say, okay, this and this and this has to be fixed.
Right.
Then when they hire architects or engineers to do the repairs, at that time, the person can there and look at it and say, okay, these things are already done.
Right, they will get the permits, the repair that require permits. Once those permits are finalized, the architect or engineer, whoever doing inspection has to go back to the property, reassess it, and then write another report saying that, oh, it's okay. They feel like it is okay and recommend the building to be certified, that structure.
So it's really more economical if they wait for all that repair until the report is done, submitted, then the whole thing can be done all at once. Maybe that's a better advice to the client, I guess. Instead of,
But we need a report in a timely
In
manner.
90 days.
Right, so we need a
If you
report.
don't
Even
submit
if it's
everything in 90
deficient,
days,
we need a report.
Basically, in my experience, you need to do two inspections. The initial inspection, and then you have to do a re-inspection to check
After that.
that they did all the repairs, so you can recertify the building.
Unless the building is in great shape. you
Yeah,
may go
that
in
never
building, but- right.
but we are,
The people will be proactive, they will always maintain,
Oh, yeah.
repairing, you may find here and there, but.
but are we required to do that second inspection, as the gentleman said? We only required to do just one
There is
inspection.
only one inspection required if it is good.
Yeah.
But what is required, if you find repairs, then you need to update your reports. By updating, obviously, you need to do another inspection.
Your initial report.
Oh, I see. So if we find problems, we report it on the report that goes through the 90 days, whatever the period. And then after that, then they have to hire an engineer architect to go fix all of those. After it's fixed, then they're gonna call us and we go for the second time. Is that required by the city for us to?
This is required by Miami-Dade County. Chair.
We cannot hear you.
May you please unmute?
You guys
the
need to
conference room?
unmute. Yes, thank you. You guys need to unmute the conference room, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you hear us? Thank you.
So, you know.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you. So sometimes, you know, they come and just specifically, they request a permit to do repair for certification. But sometimes it's less or more than that. They don't even, specifically, they don't identify the certification. So, but again, because of Miami-Dade County asking for to provide updated certification report, you as an architect or engineer professional done report, you got to make sure those reports complete.
So we should include it in our fees
Correct.
for the second.
Well, that's, you know, and
Actually,
the
you
other
can
thing,
maybe.
and the other things, and now For every 180 days, we require for getting another letter from a professional engineer. That means that professional engineer might have, she or he has to make.
Must go there and inspect the building. It's still good.
That's the same as before.
Right.
That doesn't
So
change.
the 180 days is the 180 days.
It wasn't there before.
It wasn't there before. Before you come
So
here,
if it's a large building, that will take you a year and a half to complete all the repair. Every 180 days, we need a letter.
But it was required to me a
It
couple of
was
times
not
already.
required before. It was only required in the beginning, unless they are.
And before we mean,
In 2022.
no, this year I need to submit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we are talking about the
Okay.
recent changes after the.
Oh, okay.
So we're just a small building and we don't know a whole lot about how to get this done. So where do we start? We have to hire an architect or do we hire a structural
How
engineer?
many stories the building?
It's 4 stories.
Story.
Yeah. So start with the structural engineer. So we need 2. And I know you don't like to recommend them, but we don't know how to even, where do you start the search for that?
Just so you know, my building, we took forever to hire a structural engineer because one will submit a proposal to do it. And then when they do that kind of like the field work, they'll be, oh, we're too busy. They're just like, they don't want to take the, the task. And then we go through another one, We even have one that was approved by the board. Okay, do you hire them? And then they backed out. No, once they see the 3 stories or more, they step back. So not easy to, I mean, I don't know if they're all too busy or they don't want to. They don't want to get there.
worse.
Yeah.
You have the DRH as.
Yeah, I understand, but they're just gonna get this year. Everybody has to be done with the end of
Actually,
next
it's a
year.
catch-up thing, that we're gonna be very good.
So if my building was already recertified, it's 50-year recertification in 2020. I don't have to recertify it now again for 2025,
No,
right?
it was-
I just have to say, right?
What was the year that the building was due?
Built in 1970. So we went through a 40-year recertification, and like a little more than 10 years ago, and then we went through the 50, like,
In the 1930. It would be.
okay.
Yeah, it's not when you do the report, but when it was due.
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
But if you
But they
do
get
3
like,
years,
benefit in from being delayed, so.
correct.
But before the 70, you did one in 2010, right? And
Yeah, 2010, yeah.
and then another in 2020,
Yeah,
and now
yeah,
you do
yeah,
that.
correct. But if the 2010 was done in 2015, then it would
It's
have
gonna
been
be
20.
5 years from when you got
Correct.
5.
Yeah, we did that in one building and it was like almost 2 years different because it took like 8 years to.
Again, this is our recertification team. Mr. Jarapur is the head of the 40-year certification team. And his email is there if you have any questions for him. Our structural engineer, Mr. Messiero, his email is on the board, and our structural engineer, Mr. Andreas. And general questions for a recertification or anything, we have those ladies there, Dave and Jackie. They answer the building recertification email. So.
Can we get a copy of the PowerPoint somehow?
It's always put in our website through the events page.
You should have it.
So
It's already
it should be there in a few days. Our internal IT helps us put it.
So within a few days, it should be on the.
It's got the-
If you don't get it, maybe send an email to building recertification and we can have it an email to you or like that.
PDF, I guess. You can send it.
Yeah.
How about the new, isn't there like a 3 mile from the coastline to, what is that new requirement?
That they get a condominium beach, yeah.
Yeah.
Anything, the entire city of Miami Beach.
Within 3 miles.
It's 3 miles. Yeah.
So we're lucky.
Go to the next.
We're lucky, what's that?
But they're not like beach.
Like around.
They keep adding more sand to the beach. We'll be fine.
For the way.
We have this online booking system. So appointments, anybody needs to have appointment with our staff, whether it's a structural, electrical or recertification team. You can go online and do an appointment. We can do virtual appointments or you can also request in person. Some people, they live far away, they
The walk-in appointment are here or in the North Beach?
No, they are.
Not here, okay.
So,
Because they used to be in the North Beach.
Yes, but now they are available here.
Okay.
yes.
So we could do
Okay.
virtual or in person, but that's a system to, why you go there and make a request. Next. We don't always recommend people to call the call center. First thing is to go through our website and look the information yourself. But if you do feel that you need to reach somebody and cannot figure things on the website, and that's the phone number. 305-673-7610, and then you press 0. The telephones are answered Monday through Friday between 8 a.m. and 3. This is the contact information for the administration. We have our operations manager, Bashir Ismail, her email is there. Natasha Dia is our assistant director, her email. Then myself, Narendra Singh, my email is there, I'm the deputy director. And then our building official and director, Ana Salguero, her email is there. Emails are basically first and last name together at miamibeachfl.com. And thank you for attending this. And if you have any questions or
There were some
you want to
questions.
open up the microphone there to see anybody have questions.
There's some questions on the chat. I'm
Okay.
gonna scroll through it quickly. Sorry.
A question over here. So let's say a 30-year, 40-year, whatever you want to call it, is due, say, 2 years from now, 2025. And the person goes in and does they finish up the work right now, so this. The next one, which is 10 years, would be 10 years after 25, which would be 35. By doing it 2 years ahead of time now, does that pull the other one 2 years also?
No, it will be 10 years from when it was due.
So the other one's.
It's always going to be 10 years from when it was due, whether you submit 2 years in advance or it takes you a while to get it.
So it's good to do it ahead of time, so you don't get penalized. I'm sorry.
We have one hand raised, Iliana Tomei. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Our question was, because given to the fact that seawalls are included, we were wondering the portion of the seawall that's below the water level. How do we inspect that portion?
Okay, the portion of the seawall below the water level,
Yes,
well, you need to, if you feel like there's, if there's evidence that there's major damage below there, then there has to be, you have to hire somebody that go down there and do the inspection.
Right, son.
but in the case that whenever we're out there, everything looks good, there's no further need to, like,
No,
do that
there's
kind
no
of-
need. There has to be
Okay.
evidence that there's a damage.
Alrighty,
The
alrighty.
same that for foundation, the foundation, if the building has no settlement issues, you don't need to do anything with the foundation.
Of course. Okay, understood. Thank you.
If you have major, you're losing a lot of material behind the seawall. And then let's say the parking, the pavement is sinking, there's something down there, there's a damage, and then you have to go, have to be investigated.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Lawrence, go ahead and you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Lawrence, with your hand raised?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I have a few questions. The first is regarding if our building is up for.
See anything else?
I'm sorry? Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, Lawrence, I think somebody interrupted.
Okay, my first question is about if our building is due for a 50-year certification, and now, let's say within the next couple of years, and now we got a notice about this that we have to do this new recertification within the next 2 years, which one do we need to do?
Well, the recertification, it needs to be done based on due date. Now, what's with the new updated Miami-Dade County ordinance, you can do 2 year prior due date. Let's say assuming that, in 2025 will be due, so you can actually hire architect and hire, do the report and start the report before that. So that's, but it has to be based on a due date.
Okay, so both need to be done?
I don't understand. No, it's not a both, son. If the building is due in 2025, like Mr. Jarapur said, you can actually 2 years prior, which is 2023 now, you can actually submit a report now. And then if that is acceptable, the report is good and our people review it and it's approved, you don't need to get it certified again. It will be good for 10 years from 2025. Then it will be 2035 will be the next report, next certification.
I see. So it's not going to be every 5 years now like it was before. In other words, after 50, it's going to be every 10.
Every 10 years from when it was due, but you have an option of submitting the report 2 years prior to it, or 90 days after when it's due, when you get that notification. Those are the only conditions that are considered as a timely manner. So if they're not in a timely manner, then we have other progressive disciplinary action to special magistrate or unsafe structures board. So in order to prevent being in a violation, those are the requirements.
I think the question, Narinder, is he thought that if we went to a 25-year cycle, if he's on the 50, he'd have to do the 55. Once you've been on the 10-year cycle and your building was 40 and you're on the 10-year cycle, that cycle will not change. The 10-year cycle is not changing. What we are looking at more stringently is the date of occupancy, and that's on the county website for the property appraiser. And so if your building gets to one of the milestone years that are the new due dates that are coming, the newer buildings will be on a different timeline. The buildings that have already been recertified are on that 10-year recurring timeline.
Right.
I see.
Sorry,
Okay.
someplace where there's hammering.
So if your building, right, if your building is due in 2025 and you get certified either in 2025 or before, now the next recertification will be 2035.
Okay. How do these requirements for certification differ from the new state SERS requirements that are coming out regarding structural integral reserve study and, phase one, I guess a phase one structural inspection and then possibly a phase two?
These are the same. It's integrated with so if you look at the inspections that are required here, it actually talks about whether additional testing is required. So this falls into line with the state's phase one and phase two. These are phase one inspections with an option for phase two being decided by the structural engineer as they encounter situations on site. So it should line up with the state's phase one and phase two.
Understood. Okay, last question. We just received the notice, the 2-year recertification notice yesterday, posted on our door. Does that mean we have a full 2 years to now get recertified, or do we have to be recertified by December 31st, 24?
If the notice says 2 years, then it's not a December 31st, 24. So it depends on the notice that was sent. There was a series of buildings posted. And so depending on any of the buildings that are catch-up years, so those are the ones that next year will be turning between 30 and 39 and between 25 and 39, depending on whether they're condominiums and cooperatives above 3 stories or above, or they're every other building. And anything else is on its regular cycle. So if you've got a regular posting that says, hey, you're due in 2 years, this is letting you know that it's not a December 31st of 2024, you're on the next 2-year cycle. So read the notices. We try to keep them on the timeline of the due dates. So it's the pre-warning for not for 2024. So for 2025, it's the warning that these will be due in 2025. If it says it's a 2-year notice.
Okay, because it didn't have a date, an actual due date on there. It just said 2 years, I guess, from receipt of the notice. Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, the next person is Diana. You can unmute.
I'm just wondering if there's some kind of a certificate paper or some kind of something we get for attending this today.
Certificate program for this.
Oh, this.
This is just for informational to inform the public and the design professional contractors and I'm sure some of them are like condo managers or something. It's just an informational. There's no certificate for attending.
Continuing education.
Yes. We are not the approved providers from the state.
Nanette?
Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm muting myself. I was wondering if you could please clarify, not just for my purpose, but mostly for those that might be property managers and need a little bit more guidance on this process. When we were talking about the recertification on the structural portion be by a structural engineer, you are not required to be Florida Board of Engineers recognized structural engineer to practice structural engineering. That is how it states on the Florida Board of Professional Engineers website and the law. So what requirements specifically are you looking for the structural engineers to have?
Okay, there's several ways of qualifying for this. The easiest way, is that the engineer has passed the structural examination, obtained the professional engineer license by passing the structural examination. Not any other examination. A professional engineer can become an engineer by passing a transportation exam or passing a water quality exam, but it has to be in the structural discipline. Now,
okay, may I stop you right there? Just for clarification. Yes. So for everyone in attendance, this is not a structural engineer that took their exam under civil with a specialty in structures. It is someone that has passed the SE exam and has the structural engineering license, which was not required in the state of Florida, which is not required in the state of Florida to practice structural engineering, but is required to obtain a recognition by the Florida Board of Professional Engineers as a structural engineer recognized in the state. Yes. I clarify that because there's folks that, you go out looking out for engineers, and the fact that you practice structural engineer will not necessarily be, and when we say professional engineers, not everyone is well informed about the difference between a PE with a structural exam and an SE exam.
Yes, so if the engineer needs to have passed the structural exam. If he didn't pass the structural exam because at the time that was not available, that's another option to get recognized by the board as a professional engineer. That's the other option.
Yeah, the state is recognizing, and there's a state recognition as a structural engineer, and you would get that through the state. So if someone is a licensed PE who has been practicing structural engineering exclusively, they could apply to the state for recognition. And so with that state recognition, that is someone who could also be providing those reports.
Leroy is next.
Did you say Hubalek?
Leroy?
Oh, sorry.
Leroy, I think you're muted. If not Nestor, A. Cuento.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, sorry, Nestor.
I'm sorry.
We'll go with Leroy. He's first.
Yeah, Mike, well, let me just back up a bit. I'm doing the electrical part. I've been a thermographer level 2 for 25 years, and I've had my contractor's license for 40 years. So we're getting down into the nitty gritty about some of this stuff, like your previous caller saying about being certified. So we're seeing the same thing in the electrical part. You're, I don't know, different municipalities or AHJs do things differently. I know everything's kind of pending on Bora's guidelines, but as far as Miami Beach is concerned, I guess you're letting architects and so-called engineers of all different kinds do the electrical part of the recertification, which has been the practice for a long time. But with our experience, these architects and so-called they're not electrical engineers to start right off the bat, very few. We've done several hundred of these recertifications, and maybe 1% of the engineers that do this stuff are electrical engineers, but the rest have no idea what's going on electrically, like the architects, and they really don't have a knowledge of that. So one of my questions is,
The
will there
electrical
ever be?
engineering is required on anything over 400 amps.
No, not.
No,
I don't think so.
It's required on the threshold building.
Yeah.
Are you saying that electrical engineer is required to fill out the recertification part of the electrical?
Yes.
I don't think
For
so.
anything that's a threshold building. Yes. Yes.
No, I'm not talking about
electrical.
not threshold buildings, just regular buildings.
Oh,
Threshold building is 4 stories or above. So that's any building that's above 3 stories is a threshold building. So anything
Yeah, but I'm not.
lower.
So non-threshold buildings, you can, right now, architects are doing it and approving it, and they really have no
They
idea
are
about.
allowed, yes, for years.
They are allowed.
They are allowed.
Yeah.
Once not threshold building,
For
architect can do it.
for a building having up to three story floors, an architect or an engineer, other than electrical, can do the report. There is no problem with that. For a threshold building, an electrical engineer is needed.
Correct. I'm not, well, like previous caller said, nobody wants to get into the threshold buildings because there's just so much liability. But I'm referring to the non-threshold building stuff, the electrical part of that. And we've done several hundred of these, like I said, and to have I'm not sure why the board, and if it's Bora, whoever, lets architects, you're not letting architects certify the structural part. You're making a structural engineer do it. So why wouldn't you do the same thing with the electrical? Make an electrical engineer be responsible for the electrical, not an architect or an engineer that's specializes in soil or something. I just don't. You need to have somebody with more knowledge of the electrical industry overseeing what they're doing as far as the electrical part. I mean, that's just a comment. The second thing is, yeah, we go into these buildings and we take these pictures as a baseline, and Miami Beach wants a picture of all these panels that are required. So we're taking a picture of all the panels, even if it has an anomaly or not, and sending that in. So I'm just, do we need to take pictures of stuff that does not have an anomaly just so you guys can be assured that we did our job? Or do you just want to see the anomalies?
But are you talking about the thermographic report or the electrical report?
The thermographical on the electrical. The electrical part of the the recertification is just something the engineer or architect just checks off. Panels are okay, gutters are okay. They just go through and check and send it in. But the thermography part is requiring actual pictures. So my question to you is, do you want us to take a picture of every panel in the building, whether it has an anomaly or not? Just so you can,
Every 400 amp panel or greater, yes.
well, no, when you say 400 amp panel, that's the service size that requires us to go into the building. Now we're in the building. Now do we take pictures of only that 400 amp service or all the panels inside the 400 amp service?
The thermography is only required for the ones that are above the 400 amps, so you don't have to go into every unit and do the thermography. The thermography is required at the 400 amp panel.
Maybe the chief electrical inspector can address this. I understand that it's not required unless it's a 400 amp service. All right, so if we go into a 600 amp service, I know we don't have to go into actual units of people, but once you get into the electrical room, you have panels, disconnects, time clocks, transfer switches, many things. So my question to you is, if we go in and scan all this stuff and we see nothing wrong, we still have to take the picture and send it in to show you that we actually did take the pictures, correct?
Yes, in that case, if there is an electrical room in there that has all this equipment, yes, we need picture for all those testers, for all those equipment.
Okay, I don't want to
In
take
the
a
electrical
picture.
room, not in every unit, okay?
Right, in the electrical room. And so just what we're seeing, I know I'm running long and I know other people want to ask questions, but this is the only format that I've had the chance, because I've called Bora and I've tried to do a lot of things to do my due diligence to do a good job. But it's kind of difficult with the parameters that we have now. So my last question, I'll let someone else take some questions. When we go in and we take these pictures and we give them to the architect or engineer, they give them to the owner. My question to your building department is, what percentage do you see that people pull permits for repairs on the electrical? Because every time we do it, it gets repaired and we go back and it's repaired. I don't think anybody's pulled a permit yet. So how are you guys quantifying that this whole program is doing any good if nobody's pulling a permit? Does that make sense?
Well, if you report an anomaly, they will need a permit for that, to correct that anomaly, depending on what the anomaly, what the cause of the anomaly is. For example, if you report an anomaly, that is because they have to adjust a screw, okay, because that losing screw is causing an arc or something like this. I don't see the requirement for that is a requirement for a permit to correct that.
Right fixture missing for a parking lot or something like that.
Exactly, because if you report a violation and they don't require a permit, that's a violation. That's a work without permit. Okay, and we always when doing the review of the electrical part of the report, we always ask for the necessary permit to correct the issue that are reported. So if you report an anomaly, we will require a permit to correct that anomaly. Okay? And that permit must be linked to the 40-year report to make sure that once we have the inspection done, okay, we know that item that you requested on your report was correct.
Yeah, I understand the procedure. So are you saying when after I do my report and send it to the engineer and the stuff gets fixed and I go back to do my rescan, that I should tell them I'm not going to do the rescan because there wasn't a permit pulled? I know it's getting technical, but
There's a duty to report from the engineer. So if there is an anomaly that needs a permit, there is a duty to report from the engineer. And it's not supposed to be something that's done in the background without actually reporting it. So we're supposed to get a report that shows the deficiency and notes that a permit is required, and then we follow up on it. If someone is actually doing a pre-report and then fixing anomalies without pulling permits and then submitting a secondary report, let us know, because we will report them to both the state and to Bora, because they're doing stuff on their license that's illegal. So there is a duty for engineers and architects to report. And just in case people didn't get that when they actually got licensed, it has been added into the county's need for the recertification. So there is a duty to report when an anomaly is discovered. So if somebody is doing this, what they're doing is they're doing work without a permit, and they're cheating the system, and they could possibly be endangering people in the building by doing unpermitted work. So that would not be compliant with state law, is not compliant, and it's not good engineering practice on top of everything else.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That was why my first two questions were, we need to have an electrical engineer sign off on the electrical part, not architects and just regular engineers. No, that was why I asked that first question. And the second question was, how many of these permits are being pulled for repairs? I mean, the building department would be the only people that would know that, because I'm probably thinking 1%, and there's way more than one.
Every report that comes in that shows an electrical anomaly has an electrical permit pulled on it. Every report that shows a structural anomaly has a structural pulled on it. There are more structural anomalies than electrical anomalies that require permits, but they are being pulled on, I think, on a regular basis. I wouldn't say it's 1%.
Okay. I'm out in the field every day doing it. But all right. Well, thank you very much. And I'm sorry I took us so much time. But I think we need to get electrical engineers involved rather than just architects, because they are more tuned to what's going on, and they'll make sure more of these permits are pulled, and it'll be a better job all the way around. Thank you.
So next is Nestor.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Firstly, thank you everybody for all the insight. We've been doing these recertifications for a long time, and one of the questions that I had was actually it's a two-part question. Number one is, I was told that the Florida Board of Professional Engineers is changing some of the requirements for the special recognition program, and once that goes into effect, how far behind will you guys be from, or Miami-Dade County be from, implementing those changes?
Okay, that I'm not aware of that, but you now the qualifications based on the ordinance, you need to have either pass exam, a structural exam, or be our interpretation. If you are not able to didn't do that, and you have been practicing engineering, then you have to get recognized by the board. If they change it, then mean they're lowering the requirements.
From my understanding, they're going to include special inspectors, licensed special inspectors as part of the requirements for the recognition program.
Okay.
And reducing the number of years of experience as a requirement.
Yes, we will accept. If you are recognized as a structural engineer, you get the recognition, we will accept it.
Okay. The second part of the question is just to get some clarification regarding having EIs, engineering interns, to be able to assist in the inspection process, and the professional engineer that's the responsible charge of those EIs signing the reports. Is there any recommendations or guidelines regarding using EIs to perform some of the inspections?
I don't know any guidelines. It has to be signed by a professional.
That's your responsibility as the engineer of record. Then you have to make sure that the person that's working under you is well qualified. You have to be well qualified to do the job. That's at the end your responsibility.
So just to clarify, it's the responsibility of the engineer of record or the professional engineer for anybody working under them, but they can assist in the inspection process as long as they're qualified and it's under direct supervision of this professional engineer, correct?
My understanding is yes.
Yes. Okay. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Luis Ortega.
I'm here. Thank you so much, guys, for doing this. So just to clarify, because I think Ned, confused me. Being honest, confused me a little bit here. So we do recertification for 40 years buildings and 50s and whatever, but we don't go through threshold buildings. Now, I'm gonna tell you my profile. I'm a PE. I got 5 years of experience. I mean, after I did my when I got my PE, and then I already have 5 more years. But I took my PE exam in the structural specialty. So basically I think I don't need anything else to continue performing the inspections in the for buildings that are no threshold, right?
Yes, you're okay. Even if you want to do thresholds, you are also qualified. If you pass the structural exam, you're qualified to do all the buildings.
But that exactly that's what I want to clarify. I when I took the PE, it's a two-part exam. You take the general in the morning, and in the afternoon you take your area of specialty, which was structural. I did not take the one that the SE. I didn't took the structural exam.
No, then you can right now you can only do non-structural buildings. I mean non-threshold buildings.
Non-threshold buildings. That okay.
Unless you get recognized by the state as a structural engineer.
And let me ask you this, because we've been doing this. I mean, I'm telling you, we got more than 5 years doing this. My partner has like 10 years doing this, but he has his license on construction. So even though he's not in structural specialty of the PE, he's been doing this in construction. I mean, several times. Construction is really related to what you're gonna see whenever you go to warehouses. I mean, 2-story buildings and so on and so forth. Is that something that you guys will accept his license on it, or you're gonna be like more strict on that and not accepting that?
When did he get his license? Did he get a license before the structural was a category in the state requirement?
No, I mean, he got his license he's young too, but he got his license. He got 10 years with his license, so it will be around 2013. So
if it wasn't a structural, then I don't see it unless.
He does. I mean, he took it in construction, the PE exam, the area of specialty. But he's been doing this, I mean, for a long time. So I for non-threshold. I mean.
If it's a professional engineer, it's allowed to do recertification for non-threshold buildings. If it's a professional engineer, any professional engineer, remember the professional engineer here in Florida self-qualified what he can do or he cannot do. There's no specialty in Florida. So if you pass exam in electrical and you have been trained and practiced structural, you are allowed technically to do structural work. I'm not talking about.
I think he was talking about.
Okay.
Person is licensed in construction, not in.
No, he took a professional engineering exam.
Yeah, remember the PE exam is 2-part exam. So whenever you enroll to the PE exam, you say, okay, I wanna do water resources, I wanna do geotech, I wanna do construction. But at the end of the day, it's the PE exam. The license that you get, it says professional engineer.
Exactly. That's all we get, professional engineer. If he's a professional engineer, he can do non-threshold building.
Non-threshold building. Perfect. That makes really sense. Okay. Let me now ask you this. So let's say I'm a limited special inspector. I'm not even allowed to do the inspections, right? In thresholds.
No, not right now.
Not right now. Okay. Perfect.
You need to get recognized by the board. By the
board.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for the clarifications.
Thank you, Luis. Lawrence?
Yeah, just one question regarding the reserve study. Is the reserve study required as part of this 2-year recertification for every item greater than 10,000 in value?
That's not just,
We don't enforce that.
maybe you gotta ask the condo ombudsman or something, or Miami-Dade County, we're not involved in that, in the bills or funding or anything.
No, because again, I mean, when I asked a few questions before, I was told that, you know, the state's requirements for the SERS study, for the SERS requirement for every building greater than 3 stories, yeah, this 2-year recertification is a combination of is combining the Miami Beach's requirements with what the state requirements are. But part of what the state's requirements are is to have a reserve study done for every item that's $10,000 or more that wasn't a previous requirement for buildings to do. Now it is. So you would have somebody come down, they would tell you, okay, your windows, they need to be changed within the next 3 years. This is how much you need to account for that. And I'm guessing that when they come down and they do the inspection, they're also going to be inspecting the windows and everything else that meet. So is that required now as part of this recertification, or is it just completely separate?
It's not a requirement for us to certify those. We're not looking at that. That may be a state requirement that another agency or somebody checks, or another building.
No, that's part of the state law, but the recertification only adopted the milestone inspections or in the recertification program. The research studies are out of they're not in the recertification program, and we don't enforce and we don't enforce that part.
That's not a requirement for us to certify your building for the building department.
Okay, thank you.
Patricia?
Yes, good morning. Thanks for educating us on everything here. I wonder if there is a public list of buildings that are past due and lack their recertification in Miami Beach?
No, we don't have any list, but as mentioned before, you can get a list from Miami-Dade County. I believe maybe the property appraisal report. Basically, it goes by when the building was built, and based on a 20 years program for condominium, and based on the basically 30 years for other building, which is built due in December 31st, 2024, and also any other building which is more than 40 years is 10 years anniversary from that day here.
So if your building is more than 40 years old and it was certified, let's say 6 years ago or so, it will be due in 4 years. So after whenever you get certified, or you are required to get certified, is 10 years after that. So if it's one of those newer buildings that fall between 25 and 40 years, or is between 30 and 40, if it's not a cooperative or condo less than 3 story, then that will fall into the next year on as a catch up on December 31st, 2020.
Okay, so like the buildings near the ocean or any body water, they have to be recertified now at 20 years or 25?
25.
25 is the new.
Okay. Story.
Only condominiums.
Condos.
That doesn't apply to hotels, office buildings.
Condominiums, 3-story or higher.
Condos and
Yes, 3-story or higher.
And the condominium is 2-story, 3-story,
30 years.
30 years.
Okay. And
That's the
for
first
an
time 30 and then 10 years.
got it. And for an old building that is like 50 years old and it's not been recertified yet, what is the status of this building? What happens?
It should have been certified at 40 years if it's a 50-year-old building.
But it has not been, I believe.
Okay, if you have a specific address, you can email to building recertification team. They will look it up, see if it was certified. If not, they will send a notice that it needs to be certified.
Yeah, and because it's old and it's on the beach right in front of the ocean, if there's plans of building a big tower next door to the building, we're kind of, scared and skeptical with excavations and things like that. So I think there's high risks in my opinion, but I'll write to you privately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Patricia Yanesi?
Hi, good morning. I have a question. Would it be a conflict of interest if a construction company performs the recertification inspection and also does the repairs?
I don't think so, no. If there's one company would both report and reverse. That means the engineer company, they have also general contractor license. No, but they're not allowed to inspect,
No, that's in the permit.
No, the permit.
With the permit, they need, the inspector cannot be the contractor, but yes, an engineering company that has a contractor and an engineer, the engineer can do the recertification, and he can also prepare plans to do the repairs.
So, okay, so that means that the same company, if they have a structural engineer, but they also have the GC license, they can do both, right?
Yes.
But they cannot do, if it requires a special inspector, they cannot inspect their own work. That has to be done by the person.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Dacia?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me now?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to check and see, I saw that you guys posted 2 different slides with different extension timelines. One of them said that you guys provided a 150-day extension, and the other slide said that you provided a 180-day extension. I wanted to get some clarity on those extensions.
Okay, for 150 days extension, when we issued a 90 days notice that the building has to be recertified within 90 days. And if the architect or engineer find there is a repair needs to be done, so based on Miami-Dade County, it would be 60 days more will be added. That would be 150 days. Now, the 180 days, if basically is based on the repair needs to be done, let's say it's gonna take more than 6 months, so maybe a year, so then you need 180 days extension request to be submitted by a structure, by professional engineer or architect to request it, and basically, and that report also has to say the building is safe to be occupied while the repair is going on.
Okay, let me see if I can summarize this and make sure I understand it correctly. So first you send out the 90 days notice, and if we realize that we need an extension in order to get that certification or recertification, we can request a 150-day extension to get that certification completed.
No, actually, that is a 6 day. Total is 150 days from the day that the notice was sent out. Let's say assume that if we send the notice today, in 90 days, you have to report needs to be submitted. Now, during these 90 days, if professional engineer find the repairs needs to be done, so the 60 days would be added to that 90 days, which is 100, would be total 150 days from the day that notice was received.
Okay, so then we get the certification submitted to the city. There's some deficiencies on the certification. we can then request a 180-day extension to get the repairs completed and the permits.
After 150 days, they have to apply for permits. Correct. That's where the 60-day extension that they can get. Correct. To get the permits. And once the permit is issued, it's already repairs are happening. That's when the engineer provides a letter every 180 days. Say the building is safe to remain occupied, both structurally and electrically. And to getting that up to 6 months, up to 180 days, based on the fact that repairs are being going on in the building. Not without the permits. If there are no permits issued, don't get any other extension.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Hey, Lawrence. Can go ahead, please. Janet, please go ahead.
Sure. So we need to be certified structural engineers to perform this recertification. How about their repair work? Is that acceptable to be performed by a professional engineer?
Yes, we're talking about threshold buildings.
Yes,
We're
on
talking
threshold
about
building.
preparing plans to do repairs. Any engineer that is self-qualified himself or herself can prepare the plans. If it's a threshold building, the inspections have to be performed by an engineer that has a special inspector license for threshold buildings.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
That's not the requirement for qualifications as a structural engineer. That's not in the permit.
Right. That's part of a permitting and repairs. Like normally, even if it wasn't due for a whole year, still need repairs to the building that fall in the same category.
I didn't catch that last clarification.
I said that's with the permits. If it needs repairs and those permitting that fall into the normal process of repairing the building, even if it was not due for the building recertification.
Perfect. Understood. Thank you so much.
Jerome?
Yes, my question relates to if you, and maybe you said this during the presentation and I missed it. If there is a building that was cited for recertification prior to the changes, are they required to now do the recertification based on these new changes, or are they following the requirements under which they were cited?
So it's based on the basically when was recertification notification received. So meaning that if the certification notice was done before when the Miami-Dade County adopted the ordinance, the revised ordinance, it has to be done based on that. But if it's after that, it has to be done based on the revised Miami-Dade County, updated Miami-Dade County.
So let me just clarify. So if a building, so prior you didn't require infrared. So if the building was cited and it didn't require infrared, that means if they're now just going to have the recertification inspection done for electrical, they will not be required to do an infrared thermography study, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more hand raised. I'm gonna go quickly to the chat to see if there was any questions we didn't answer.
I would like to ask one question.
Go ahead.
Can I proceed?
Yes.
In a building where you have several old electrical, now you mentioned Federal Pacific, where the electrical engineers, the inspector said these are obsolete. They're not even just spare parts or the breakers, so he's not going to certify. So he's putting a proposal to replace them. Yes, to replace. The question is, because we gave the contractor the option, you give us a good deal, and we'll make all the unit owners use you. The question is, do we pull a permit for the whole units, or each one has to pull their own permit?
If the work is being done by the management, they can actually get one permit. to replace in all the buildings, in every unit. So it will be under the management folio. So if they are doing all of them.
Yeah, there's, we hired an electrical inspector.
Right, let's say there are 30 units in the building.
Correct.
And on all 30, the repairs needs to be done or replaced or whatever. The condo association manage, they have their own master folio for the condo association. They can get one permit under that folio to all the repairs.
So under the current 4-year process that we have, which we did the roof, by the way, Mr. He says you helped us a lot over the phone. We spoke to him about it. He's probably out of the minute. He doesn't remember, but I remember it. We can pull with this electrical engineer attached to that permit, a general permit to replace.
One permit to repair throughout the.
And then once they're all completed, then we can submit that as being completed. Because they are we're doing a 2-part. One is for the general, like you said, the light bulb stuff, and even we have 2 in electrical. One is the one that did the preliminary inspection, said this what you need to do, and then the second one has been the work and also inspecting inside the units. And so he's already, changed the light bulb, whatever.
The repairs inside.
And now we're going to, and he's the one that said about that panel. He says, no, these are not we're not going to accept these. You need to replace them. So we're waiting for his proposal. It's going to be individual, but
you want to get one.
we probably I'm gonna ask them to get one permit
under the master folio.
under master folio for all of them, yeah.
Okay. Experience is better to get one contractor to do the entire job. Like we've got a complicated building and we're replacing a switch here or some portion of the walkway, you have to get a specialized company. It's better to get one.
This seems.
Imagine a building 56 units and you have to fix 37 units.
Correct.
And you're having a different contractor. You don't know how the contractor works.
Correct.
You prefer to get one contractor to follow with only one person.
Correct.
Just one meeting at a time. It's better.
Yeah, that's what we're shooting for.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna give the contractor the pressure to give the good price, and we're gonna get a second. Usually supposed to get 3, but we'll get another one to compare. But yes, we're gonna try to use one for all of them. And but that's the price. So we'll then get a general permit for all electrical connection.
The management folio that you mentioned, if the condos, let's say 2 towers, are there 2 different management folios, 2 different master folios?
No, this is sometimes they are, sometimes they are not.
Okay.
So even if the buildings are separate, there's still one.
They may have a different address and different folio for each building.
If it's a different address, then different folio.
Clarify me, what is in? Permit sounds kind of.
Sorry. So the first question through the chat, how does the certification differ from the new state SIRS requirement? Did we answer that one already? How does the certification, I guess Lawrence, because I saw he did raise his hand, so maybe.
Oh, yes, that's for the licensing. We talked about that.
If we have a 50-year, I think he talked, okay. What if the building is, Patricia talked too, okay. Eliana talked as well.
Some questions.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Mohammed, how many years of structural experience must the SC have to be considered qualified?
That was asked.
That was asked too. If a structural engineer, she asked too. Does anyone else have a question that hasn't been answered yet, either through chat or, oh wait, there's one more person. Stacia, did you have another question?
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
I wanted to check and see, I know there was. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that you had mentioned that there was going to be possibly a service to expedite the permits for certifications. Do you know what the timeline of that would be? Is it something they're working on now? Is it?
Not at this, but we are developing it, we are coming up, and once we have it, we usually post it on our website, it should be there, but we are working on both ways to expedite, fast track the permits for the building recertifications, and also try to find if we can get some discounts on the fees for the recertification process.
Okay, do you think we'll see that happening in 2023 or should it be in future years?
I'm hopeful that it will be this year, but again, I don't have any definitive, it's just something that we are working towards.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Leroy, did you have a question?
Yeah, real quick, when we send the structural and the electrical in and everything's approved, does the city do their own inspection, follow-up inspection? Or they just take the reports and that's it, it's closed?
We have been sending inspectors just to a site visit to briefly walk through the building for mainly threshold buildings, being 4 stories and higher. The smaller buildings, we have not been sending any inspectors to do any verification. It's not required by the ordinance. So that's the option that we have taken here internally, mainly threshold buildings.
Okay, because yeah, so different AHJs are doing different things. I think the county is sending out inspectors to do follow-up on non-threshold buildings, but I just wasn't sure what the city of Miami Beach was doing at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think that's all the questions.
Question over here. For non-threshold buildings, licensed architect, licensed engineers, they can do inspection, they can do anything structural. Do they also require, let's say, 1 year of experience under a inspector, such as when you get a license, you have to have 4 years experience?
No,
There's no, as long as they have license, they can do it.
Yes, the engineer, the architect, they need to be feel that they are qualified to do this job.
Yeah, sure.
Just because you have a license doesn't mean that you can do it.
But that's
But that's up to the person.
They feel confident and
That they can do the responsibility.
whatever
is
just saying.
Could you give you mentioned is condo could be 3 stories or 2 stories, or 1 story, there are condominiums. So that requirement for condominiums, that they have to be a structural engineer.
That's not for condominiums, that's for every building that is 4 story or higher. Every building that is a threshold building. Actually, it could be a 1 story building, but it has to be like a large building that is used for assembly purposes that a lot of people congregate. You have to look at the definition of threshold building.
Like 15,000 square feet.
If it's a threshold building, you need a structural engineer, you need an electrical engineer. Has nothing to do with the condominium, non-condominium, that's a separate thing.
Okay, if it's a condominium that's non-threshold, is there anything specially required for such condominiums that are non-threshold? There's nothing
From
special.
structural, but electrically, they got 400.
Well, remember, the only difference is, the only difference is if it's a condominium that is a 3-story, it's in the 25-year cycle. That's the only difference.
That's
the timeline difference.
If it's below that, then it's just like any other building.
I actually did Christopher Columbus High School 2 weeks ago. Mainly one, that's a threshold because people in the area. So
Okay, I think this concludes our meeting.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for attending this. We appreciate it. If anybody has questions, please reach out to our team. Send emails to building recertification at miamibeach. Again, thank you for attending.
Thank you.